Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. Hello. Real quick before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to let you know about a brand new quiz that I have for you. It's the Why Do I Overeat quiz. It is a quiz for you if you are someone who chronically overeats, eating to a point beyond fullness of discomfort, bloating, if you have a hard time controlling yourself around certain foods, if you emotionally eat, habitually eat. This quiz is going to help you understand yourself, understand your triggers, and uncover the real cause of overeating. And little hint, it is not because of a lack of willpower. It's not because of a lack of discipline. And so we are going to help you really uncover the real cause of overeating based on your answers. So to take this quiz, you can go to sabrinamagna.com/quiz. You'll also find that link in the show notes. So if you struggle with overeating, enjoy the quiz and let's get into today's interview. If you feel disconnected from your body, you feel shame for your sugar cravings, or don't have any productive coping mechanisms for the stressors in your life that don't involve turning to food for comfort, this episode is going to be extremely powerful for you. Today, we're joined by Dr.Meghan Klein Toups. She is a licensed professional counselor, holistic health coach, and Reiki practitioner with over 15 years of experience in the field. Meghan specializes in the holistic treatment of anxiety in women and empaths and has a special interest in gut health related to mental health. She teaches abnormal psychology and researches the ways in which cultural and societal pressures impact anxiety symptoms in mothers. During our conversation, we talk about what holistic psychology is and why it might trump traditional therapy, the importance and function of our vagus nerve to keep us healthy and happy, practices that we can do to strengthen our mind-body connection. We talk about the first step to creating change in our lives, what it means to externalize the internal. We talk about natural ways of healing and self-care, what sugar cravings really are, and how to use them to learn information about yourself. If you want to learn how to heal and create a happier, healthier version of yourself from a holistic viewpoint without dieting and giving up the foods you love, then you're in the right place, my friend. Let's jump into our conversation with Dr. Meghan Klein Toups.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, so I am super interested. I love the concept of holistic psychology. I'm sure that you're familiar with Nicole LaPera, the holistic psychologist, and I've been following her work for a while now. But anyone who's listening to this who has no idea what holistic psychology really is and what it means, do you mind sharing that a little bit and explaining what holistic psychology is?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a growing movement in the psychology field around integrating the whole person into therapy. So it's not just about treating the brain, because now we know that, just simply put, the gut is just as important to treat as the brain. And so we are mind, body, spirit, culture, relationships. There's all these different factors that make up who we are, our identity, how we function in the world, and how we experience symptoms that have to be addressed beyond just working on your thoughts or brain development. So it's taking the whole person into account. So it's holistic, meaning we're not just one factor. We're all of these multitude of factors.
Yeah. And I remember when I first wanted to get into the field of coaching and helping women just become healthier and happier, I looked at all the different things I could become. I was like, maybe I'll become a dietitian or a nutritionist or a personal trainer. And my thought process when I realized that I couldn't just focus on one aspect. I couldn't just focus on food. I couldn't just focus on exercise, because then it completely misses all of these different aspects that are so important. Because I think that's one big issue that I see in the health and wellness field right now is we put such an emphasis on one area of our life, whether that's nutrition or exercise or sleep or even gut health, but we take them in isolation without looking at how they all interact with one another.
Ah, that's so beautifully put. Yes, absolutely. It is a problem, and it kind of isolates people from feeling like they're even on a wellness journey in general. Even if somebody is, wanting to grow and heal, and maybe they eat really well, but the other components, sleep, movement, friendships, relationships, aren't in check. It doesn't mean that you're not healthy or you are healthy. So you're right. We can't take something just in isolation.
Yeah. So, how did you get into holistic psychology? Did you start with just purely focusing on the mind and then evolve? How did that look like for you?
Yeah, I started as a pretty traditional therapist. So we focus on the way that thoughts affect behaviors. So CBT was really my training. And I found more and more that people were coming to me with all these different factors contributing to their health. And I knew that, there was much more into just treating the brain. So when I became a mom, I kind of had my own healing crisis a few years later, and had experienced a good amount of anxiety before, and then it kind of reoccurred. I had taken a break from counseling. And so I was really curious as to what was going on, and decided to go see an integrative functional medicine doctor who helped me get my gut in check. And that's when I learned that the mind and body are connected through the vagus nerve. I mean, the brain and the gut through the vagus nerve. And so in all of my years and years and years of training, no one had ever taught me that before. And so I was really angry. But I learned about the power of holistic healing, meditation, energy healing, all these different factors. So I went on my own journey. And then I became a certified holistic health coach, and just decided to begin merging the two together. And so I began integrating in my practice, and eventually became a Reiki master, and then got my PhD. And so it's been an ongoing journey, and it never
Yeah.
ends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I love that you brought up the vagus nerve. I think that a lot of people don't understand the importance of the vagus nerve, and anyone who maybe has never even heard of that could really benefit from getting to know what it is and what function it serves in our bodies. So, do you mind explaining a little bit what our vagus nerve is?
Yeah, it's our largest cranial nerve, and it connects the brain and the gut together, and it touches just about every single organ. So we can activate it, and it can help. It's actually the only meditation that will activate your vagus nerve. And so in doing that, you send, I don't know if you've ever done it, but you send love to yourself, to other people, and then to the world. So it's really a connectedness meditation. And I love that connection is what stimulates the vagus nerve and can help improve our health just by sending out love to other people. So it's a really important nerve. Again, it's the largest one, but it's what connects the brain to the gut. And that's why it's so crucial to pay attention to our gut health and our brain health for mental wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will definitely get into that brain gut connection. What are some of the things that people do that might affect negatively their vagus nerve functioning?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just hard to be in this modern world in general. There's so many stressors, and we're constantly being bombarded and comparing ourselves with other people. And so I always kind of start with beginning to learn the connection between your mind and your body. How does my mind, how do my thoughts, how do the things that I'm doing impact the way that I feel in my body? Increasing that awareness, I think, is a better step than, thinking about how we can um, weaken our vagus nerve. But there's lots of different practices that we can do, from meditations to breathing techniques to activate the vagus nerve. But I think, first step is checking in with all the stressors that we have and how it's affecting our body. Awareness is always the first step in creating any change.
Hmm.
I'm sure you see that.
Yeah, that's always what I say
Yeah.
is awareness is always the first step to change. And so let's say someone is coming to you and they are completely disconnected. They're disconnected from their body. They're feeling all of what usually happens is people are feeling all the symptoms, right? Either they're feeling exhausted. In my case, they're overeating. They're emotionally depleted. They're feeling all the symptoms, but they don't actually know the cause. And so if someone's coming to you and they're completely disconnected, where do you start with them? How do we start bringing awareness to that mind body connection? What are some of the things that they can do?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think so many of us are disconnected from our bodies, but I think the first step is to not be so hard on ourselves about it. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I'm disconnected to my body, I don't really know how my mind and body are connected. First of all, recognize that this is a protection response that your body has given you to try to protect you on some level, some unconscious level. So any of our symptoms, none of our symptoms are bad. They're all here for some sort of reason to teach us something. So if you're feeling like you're disconnected from your body, there's a good reason for that. So the first step is we really need to recognize that, be kind to your body, and start to tell your body that it's safe now to find connection. Especially in situations around trauma, there can sometimes feel this disconnect between the mind and the body because it's protective. Our body goes into a protective mode. So we don't want to just get rid of the symptom, but what we do want to do is start to kind of befriend it and get curious about it and compassionate about it. So we can start tapping into, why is it coming up? How is it trying to keep me safe? And how can I tell my body, my unconscious mind, that I'm safe now? And we can begin to cultivate that kind of connection and relationship.
Okay. So do you think that the reason why a lot of people disconnect is because there's a subconscious fear of feeling what's really going on, either of feeling the negative emotions or having our past trauma come up or having like those uncomfortable thoughts that we have? I'm trying to think of my clients or the women in my community who often disconnect from their body, who often disconnect from the real feelings that make them turn to food because they don't want to feel them. We would rather numb. We would rather use destructive coping mechanisms. I mean, I think destructive and coping are kind of two sides, but do you think that it's because people just don't want, on a subconscious level, they're not intentionally making that decision to feel what's really going on?
I think that can be a really big piece of it for a lot of people. Even simply like when I began my health journey, I can remember I would always crave sugar at like 4 o'clock, and I would eat all the sugar, and until I started recognizing with awareness, like, okay, I'm trying to numb out of stress, and that I need to take better care of myself, and so I'm just really tired. But if we're kind of using food to numb or cope in this way, I do think that part of it is like a protective response. And so it is easier, not on like a pressing an easy button thing,
Yeah.
but it's quicker, it's effective, it's efficient to, eat rather than feel. But I think it, is also a deeper level. Most people don't have someone that they can talk to about hard things.
Mhm.
And so they keep everything inside. And so, food can become a comfort and a friend. So I think it's important that we address that. Societally, it's hard not only to talk about hard things, but to find someone who will listen and listen well.
Yeah, and I think that's so important too, because when I'm talking to my clients, I help them. I think it's really important to be able to talk about your relationship with people that you trust and people you feel comfortable with. But if you're not even there yet, if you're not ready to take on the subject of your past history with dieting or with body image or with food, at least having someone to be an outlet to talk about the stressors in your life, the things that aren't directly related to food, but that lead you to turn to food. Because like you said, we hold all of this in, and I don't think we really understand the impact on our physical bodies of not being able to release those things that you might not think you're a big talker. You might not think that you're someone who needs to share these hard experiences with other people, but your body might be saying otherwise.
Yeah. So well put. We do. We're social people. We live in a really isolated world, and we can start getting sick when we isolate. And so even if you're listening and you're like, I don't really have somebody I trust or whatnot, write it down. Even if you throw it away, flush it down the toilet, but just get it out. We want to try to externalize the internal. And so that can kind of begin to start a process of, what's really happening inside of me. Can I try to put it on a piece of paper or tell someone and put words to it? And that can begin a really powerful journey that may take some time too. There's no quick fixes.
I definitely know that when I started journaling, and I never thought that I would be a journaler. Like back when I was younger, I thought that was so silly, and I thought it was like something that people would do. They go to the park and sit under a tree and just journal their feelings. But really, when I started doing it, what I found was that to actually put the words down on paper, it gave the words less power. Because when we hold it all in, we give it so much power because we're resisting it. And when we're actually writing it down and we're expressing what's going on, I at least for me, I found that it was so powerful in giving those words less power. But what I wanted to ask, as you were talking about when we feel those symptoms, what are some of the ways that we might know that we're suppressing something? What are some of the physical symptoms that might be expressed in our bodies as a result of, maybe negative vagus nerve activation, or just a lack of coping mechanisms?
Yeah, I think there's emotional symptoms, there's physical symptoms, there's spiritual symptoms, all these different things. But I think in general, we can look at repetitions, we can look at patterns, we can look at resentments and angers, also often give those signs away, especially for women. So, where are you feeling resentful and angry in your life? And then, just in general, headaches, breathing, and stomach GI issues are usually very common symptoms for women. But one way that you can I can give you a little practice that maybe your listeners want to try, of like activating your mind body connection. If you close your eyes and you think about something that you love, like your favorite flower, and you think about how beautiful the flower is, how much you love it, the colors, you tap into, just do a quick little body scan and just feel how it is to think about something, how much you love it in your body. And then as soon as you're done with that, take that same flower and tell yourself how much you hate it and how ugly it is and how horrible it is. And do another quick little body scan with your eyes closed and just kind of tap in and see where any tense or tightness is in your body. And that can kind of be a little signal to you that whenever you feel those symptoms, it can be your alert that something is off, something is wanting to be integrated, something is wanting to shift. So it's like, if you feel tension in your stomach during that exercise, if you go out into the world and you're talking to somebody, you feel that tension in your stomach, it's a signal, right? So we can start to get to know our bodies differently in that way.
Yeah, I love that. I've never heard that exercise, and I love that. And I think what's really important is to bring awareness into our everyday lives, because like you said, let's say we're having a conversation with someone. We're approaching the holidays right now, and diet culture tends to get really, really loud over the holidays about making you afraid of the holiday weight gain, or making you feel guilty for eating holiday foods and actually enjoying it. Or you're spending a lot of time with your family and you are getting negative comments about body and about food. And so I know that a lot of these conversations can be triggering. And so being able to acknowledge, okay, I noticed that when I was having a conversation with my sister or my mom and she made this comment about dieting or about food or about my weight, I felt something in my stomach. And maybe that's an indication that there's a boundary that was crossed there. There was a trigger there. And bringing that awareness, number one, then you can start taking step towards, okay, maybe I can set a boundary. Maybe I need to bring a conversation up. Maybe I need to just walk away or know how to better deal with this, because some people might actually just turn to food as a coping mechanism in that situation.
Yeah, such a good point. Yes. So yes, bring that exercise to the holiday table for sure, and practice, setting boundaries with yourself and stepping away, and, go outside and take a deep breath and practice these things, even, just in the moment. So if you can notice the tightness or the tension or whatever it is, and you're like, okay, a boundary has been crossed. That's my awareness. So, I might feel the desire to, grab a dessert, and that's fine too. But just like, if you can, if you're trying to increase your mind body connection and psychological growth, maybe try to take a breath in between, go outside, try to nourish yourself in that moment, because that really is how things begin to shift and you can feel more empowered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are people who are buying all kinds of crazy supplements or turning to medication. Like we were talking about before, there's really like that quick fix. And so I know that you just mentioned a few going outside, taking a walk, doing breathing exercises, but what are some of your favorite ways of favorite natural ways of healing and of self-care?
Yeah. So, there's obviously coping techniques. One really great one, if somebody wants to implement it, is if you exhale longer than you inhale, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So you can actually be sitting at a dinner table with family who may be crossing boundaries, and you just breathe in for 4, you hold it for 5, and you exhale for 6. And that's already beginning to create a physiological change in the body. So there's little tips like that. You can also press your fingers like this together under the dinner table. These are all quick, easy, private things that you can do to help regulate your nervous system in the moment. But in general, yeah, you can go outside, fresh air, nature, connection with other people, having herbal teas, things like that, kind of as regular practices can be really helpful too.
What are your thoughts on having like a little timeout? Let's say you're at a family get together and you're noticing there's just a lot of activity going on. There's a lot of stimulation and family get-togethers. I have an amazing family. Like I'm so blessed, but we're a big family. We're loud and I'm an extrovert, but even with all of this going on, it gets to be overwhelming. And so what are your thoughts on like taking a little break for yourself and going to the bathroom for 5 minutes just to like recollect yourself, recollect your thoughts, kind of go through, okay, what am I feeling right now? What do I need to do going for the rest of the night? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so essential. And like you can do it privately, but if you don't want to do it privately and you just want to tell people, like, let's normalize self-care. Like, you might just need a timeout. And in doing that, maybe you give permission for your cousin to do it too. But otherwise, yeah, definitely taking breaks, but noticing like when you start getting up to like a level 5 or 6 and maybe going for a break then, like, I'm pretty introverted and can get easily stimulated. And so for me, it's important to like know my boundaries, tell them to my family beforehand, like have a plan, but also like, taking those little breaks is really key. And it's not like against anybody. It's just, I can get overwhelmed. And so I have to kind of recognize when I'm getting at a 5 or a 6, and then I go, take a little time out and care for myself.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so you normalize it, you give people permission to do that for themselves. And then,
yeah. I want to circle back to something you mentioned before. You touched on the topic of sugar cravings. And I know that you talk about how to use sugar cravings to learn information about yourself. So do you mind telling me a little bit more about how you can do that? Because I know I've talked to so many women who see sugar cravings as something to be ashamed of, as an indication that they're addicted to food, they're addicted to sugar, there's something wrong with them. So how can you look at sugar cravings differently?
Yeah, sugar is such a big one. Our body is always seeking homeostasis. So it's always seeking a balance. And so if you're craving sugar, it's just your body's innate wisdom of saying, I need energy. Maybe I need more love or sweetness in my life, right? Like, so it's your body's way of telling you something. Sugar also acts on the same receptors in your brain as drugs and alcohol do. So it is addictive, but it gives you a little dopamine hit. Like it makes you feel good. So it makes sense that if you're having a hard day or you're tired or you're stressed or you need some energy, you may crave sugar. It's your body's way of saying like, hey, I want to feel better. That's all it is. And so if you reframe it in that way, it's like my body is trying to get energized. It's trying to feel better. Maybe I need some more hugs in my life. Maybe I need, you could think about that metaphorically. What does sweetness mean? How do you need more sweetness? Like just energetically in your life, through relationships or friendships or whatnot. But, it's like there's a brain change and there's a mood change with sugar. So, that's only got to be a good thing in terms of your body trying to regulate itself. That's all it's doing.
Yeah. And I love the way that you put it because I think what people do when they're facing really uncontrollable sugar cravings is I'm going to cut sugar out. I'm going to go on a diet. And really all that does is a lot of the times diets, what they do is it takes a lot of joy out of our lives. We socially isolate. We are always feeling deprived. Our lives kind of feel like they shrink, they get smaller. And so the thing that we might be needing, which is actually more joy, more connection, finding more ways to bring enjoyment into our lives, we're doing the opposite, which not only do we know that the more you try to cut out sugar, the more you're going to think about it, but like on a joy level, you're missing that too, which is just becomes this like really vicious spiral.
Yeah. 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 Cutting things out, it's not very effective, and it just makes you feel worse. And it ultimately creates more shame and shame loops. So, if you can be a little kinder and gentler to yourself and recognize that your body has wisdom and it's trying to tell you something, versus just jumping into cutting it all out and going on this diet, getting curious about the symptom, right? Like, we live in a world where we just want to get rid of symptoms so quickly. Like, if we could just get rid of sugar cravings, then there would be no lesson in the symptom.
Yeah.
We say that we want to, take an Advil, get rid of your headache, but why did you get a headache in the first place? Like, are you dehydrated? Are you stressed? Are you, all these different things. So,
Yeah.
just be gentle with yourself, just like you would a headache.
Yeah. And that's the thing I always tell my clients. Your body is always trying to talk to you. The symptoms that you're feeling are not random. They don't just happen. There's a reason why your body's trying to communicate. And so if you actually took the time to listen, and it is harder work. It is harder work to like dive deep and understand what's going on. And that's why it's very beneficial to work with someone to help you do that. But to not just slap a Band-Aid on it and look away is going to be that, yeah, it's going to be harder, but it's going to be the thing that's going to solve it long term.
Yeah. And I think we do need people, we think like, oh, if I just had the willpower, I could stop doing this. I hear that a lot. Like, and it's not about that. Like, we're so complex. It could be a virus you got when you were 6 that, stayed in your system and is all these different things. So we need each other to help heal the complex system that we are. We can't just will ourselves, in this hyper individualistic way, like we do, in westernized countries. We need one another to help work through our complex symptoms and experiences and histories.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if someone is listening to all of this and they feel like they have no idea how to listen to their body, they have no idea how to connect, and they're starting to understand, okay, I do need to take a holistic point of view. The thing about holistic psychology and holistic health in general is that it can seem overwhelming because now you're not just focusing on food. You're not just focusing on exercise. There's all of these different pieces that are moving. Where do you think that someone should focus first? Like, where is the first 2 or 3 steps so that they don't get overwhelmed, so that they know where to start?
Yeah. So, the first thing that comes to mind is get in nature. So it's like, sounds strange, but if we can connect with something outside and bigger than us, it can begin starting a process. And nature is so healing, and it's free, and it's available to all of us. So if you're struggling, like, first of all, maybe you don't have enough, you don't have the resources to buy all the supplements or go see the doctors or whatever. Where do I start? Go out in nature, like connect with a tree, connect with something bigger than you. And it has healing potential. It has a healing ability to have you connect with yourself on a deeper level. So go to nature. Another thing you can do, if you're like, nature's not my thing, you can do a progressive muscle relaxation. So what that is you're tensing different parts of your body, starting with your toes, and you're relaxing it. That's all it is. So, tense your toes up as tight as you can, and then release and notice the difference. Do it with your calves, with your thighs, and just move up your body. And start there. Start with your muscles, start with your own body, this awareness piece, and start with nature. I highly recommend going out into the woods, going for a walk. It's quiet, can help you connect.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, because back when I was struggling with my disordered eating, if someone had told me the solution was to go out and take a walk or go in nature, I would have just laughed at their face. Because I was so ingrained in diet culture, and I really just thought that more restrictions and more rules and more dieting was going to be the answer. And now that I've really taken a whole new approach, I live right by a canal, so I live right by water, and as much as I can, I try to go for a walk at least once a day by the water, or I go for 2 or 3 walks a day. And of course, I wouldn't say that piece alone has been the thing that has helped me heal. And what I always try to explain is like, it's not going to be the one habit. It's not going to be 2 habits. It's going to be a whole bucket of habits that you're going to do on a daily basis. And if you can start with one, then you are going to build momentum, and you're going to see, okay, this is starting to make me feel a little bit better. And maybe not even better, but different. It's starting to make me feel different. And so maybe how can I branch off and try doing a bunch of different things that don't require making myself miserable and disconnecting me from my body like dieting does.
Yes. It's not just one thing. And it's also not a quick fix. Like, I'm still growing and healing. And, I've been on this journey for a really long time, and it's my life's work. So, there's no one and done. You can't just figure something out and then we're just fine. So having that mindset too, to help have more compassion with yourself of like, maybe it starts with a walk, but what is that going to lead to? And what is the awareness that's going to come up for me? And then maybe it leads to something else. And then maybe it leads to meeting someone in the park or it's just, so having that mindset of openness is really what we're hoping to cultivate.
Yeah. And I know that when we're stuck in that mindset of dieting and restricting, it seems like the most important thing in the world is shrinking our bodies. It seems like the most important thing in the world is our weight. And I think that even just going out in nature or even exposing yourself to more social situations where you're connecting with other people, connecting with something bigger, as you said, it can help you change your perspective on, okay, maybe this isn't as important as I think it is. And maybe I want to focus my life purpose on things that are bigger than constantly just trying to shrink my body and make that number on the scale go down.
Yes. Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, being in nature, expansion, taking up space, like, being like the trees, right?
Yeah.
That eco-psychology piece. Taking up space.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Meghan, for sharing all this with me. This is a perspective that we haven't really talked about on the show yet. So I think it's gonna help people see their health and see their health journey from an entire different approach. And so where could people find you if they want to connect with you, they want to learn more about you and the work that you do with your clients?
Social media wise, I'm on Instagram at Dr.Meghan Klein Toups and Facebook, mostly active on Instagram. And then my website is meghantoups.com. And I also have my course there available where I have a collection of all the different practices I've used on my own journey and used with my own clients as well.
Amazing. So what's the name of your course?
It's called Modern Mind. And so it's, several week.
Amazing.
Process. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Meghan. Obviously, I'm going to put all of that in the show notes. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will see you on our next episode. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.